So your body physically responds when you totally are giveful. So when you fulfill that circle, when you give and receive, you get a adrenaline hit, you get oxytocin in your body, you get a feeling of almost like a helper's high.
Welcome back to another episode of the Career Thrivers Talk Show. In this episode, we're delving into the idea that being giveful can actually become a wellness practice. Our guest today, Pat Shea, is a visionary leader. She's a former co-founder of a SaaS company that really changed the landscape of corporate giving and volunteering. Pat's insights on this idea of being giveful is a fresh perspective, which is really going to hone in on how women are sometimes challenged with the receiving end of giving. Her journey to transform workplaces into hubs of impactful giving really aligns seamlessly with our focus today. And join us as we explore Pat's transformational approach to giving, how her company automated philanthropy, and the incredible impact of reimagining the way that you give and receive. Let's dive in. So Pat, let's pick up where we last left off, which was on a walk-in talk. So if you're listening in and you're in Nashville, I do these walk-in talks, which I love to substitute a Zoom meeting or coffee to like go for a hike. So Pat and I have been on a few now, and our last conversation, which I've known of the language of Giveful from you, and we'll talk a little about your backstory as well, but you brought this completely different perspective for me on this idea of giving and receiving that you call being giveful. Tell us a little bit about what that means in terms of thinking of generosity as a wellness practice.
Thank you. All right. So it was fun being with you that morning, and I'll go anytime. Being giveful is really an idea that came to me, and it came to me almost like as an aha. But the idea is that giving and receiving are really good for us. They really help the giver as much as they help the receiver. In fact, how many people believe those who give receive? Everybody? So why don't we practice it more? So the idea I had was, let's make giving and receiving a wellness practice. Let's elevate it to that extreme. Let's get people to think about it every single day. How can you be giveful? How can you engage in giving and receiving so that it is part of how you're taking care of yourself while you're taking care of other people?
Yeah. And as women, that's usually what we do, is that last part, right? We take care of a lot of other people, whether it's our partner, our children, or we might be in the sandwich generation, as they call it, with you have children, but you also may be caregiving for parents. Talk to us a little bit about this idea that maybe women sometimes have a challenge with the receiving end and how it's all cyclical.
So when I talk about being giveful, I talk about it being sort of a constant practice, a conscious practice, and a creative practice, but it must include receiving, because giving and receiving are not opposites. They're on the same spectrum. You give and receive at the same time, like you breathe in and you breathe out. But some women refuse to give because the reasons can vary. One is women have been taught to not be needy, right? We are the caregivers. We're not the ones who expect to be cared for. Another reason a lot of women don't give is they don't feel they deserve to receive. And I was walking with a woman this morning at Radnor, and I asked her about receiving, and she said, I don't want to be indebted to anyone. But behind that is a falseness about this idea that we are independent. We're not. None of us are out here alone. We're all part of humanity. We're all connected. And so to believe that you're independent, that you're separate, is really a fallacy. So you have to give and you have to receive. And there's so much benefit from both.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about, so you have what I believe is like a career track or trajectory of giving, being generous. Walk us back a little bit and tell us about your career journey.
Okay. I'm one of those people who have never taken a straight path anywhere. So I spent about 20 years in corporate America, 10 at HCA, like everybody in Nashville, right? And then at the age of 40, I went into nonprofit leadership. So I've run a few nonprofits. I'm probably best known for the YW. And during that time, I have raised a lot of money. And in fundraising, you wake up and you're in fundraising and you think, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? But what you begin to realize is fundraising is really teaching people about the joy of giving. And once people get that idea that giving is really about them, it's so much easier because you're not asking, you are inviting. I'm not saying, Brittany, would you show up I'm inviting you to show up at my event because I want you to show up with your talents and your gifts and be part of something bigger. So I stayed at the YW, retired from there, and it took about a 2-year hiatus, did some vacationing, and then I joined a startup called Giveful. I was the CEO and co-founder, and what we did is we automated workplace giving and volunteering. And the desire was really to take giving and democratize it, make it easier for everyone to give. I would spend a lot of time with wealthy people because I could afford to spend time with wealthy people, but we didn't have a method to get those $50 gifts, those $15 gifts. So automation really helped. So what our platform did is it hooked directly to your paycheck, and you were able to give to over 1 million nonprofits with a push of a button. We launched our second product, our superior product, in February of 2020 and went home 15 days later. So Giveful was a great idea born in a really rough time. We kept it for a couple years. We were able to build up enough business that we sold our company to a payroll company that's embedded Giveful into all of their payroll systems. And so now probably 5 or 6 million people, when they log into their payroll system, can give directly to any nonprofit in the United States. So I feel accomplished even though it didn't turn out exactly like I wanted. But it was during that time that I was interviewing women like you. I was targeting successful businesswomen, and I was asking them about their giving philosophy. And I would ask them to tell me a story where they were in the middle of their giving. And that was when I was like, holy tomatoes. What happens is they receive in a way they never expected. And that's that secret of those who give, receive. That thing that we all know, but we don't really practice. We don't pursue. And so, like I said, my message now is let's take being giveful and make it a daily wellness practice. 15 minutes a day.
This season of the Career Thrivers show was recorded inside of AB Hillsboro Village. In the rhythm of Nashville, AB dances to a tune of inclusion and community. Curated by Nashville's own Marcy and Derek, this premier live music and event venue harmonizes local flair with a very welcoming spirit. It's more than a space, it's where Nashville's diverse heartbeat is celebrated, making every event an inclusive masterpiece. Learn more about AB at anzieblue.com. 15 minutes a day. I love that. Tell us about what would your story be? So if you were that woman sitting in the chair, what is the story of a time when giving really showed the power of receiving in your journey?
So there are huge examples and small examples, and I'm going to tell you about one that just happened the other day. And this is why being giveful is so powerful. It's an internal practice, right? It's something we choose to do. I was going to visit my mother, and my mother lives at St. Paul's, which is a senior center. I was taking her groceries. It was really hot. I was in the elevator thinking I'm dropping her groceries and I'm picking up her laundry. And I was feeling a little sorry for myself. And an older gentleman got on the elevator, and he was hunched over, and he got on the elevator, and I looked at him and I thought, I could be giveful or I could just stay in this funk. And so I decided to use one of my talents, which is the ability to speak to anyone at any time in any place. Ask my husband. And so I said to the guy, I said, hello, sir, how are you today? And he looked up at me and he said, whoever you're going to see, you're going to make so happy. And I said, wow, thank you. I hadn't thought that I was doing this and making my mother happy. I was kind of doing it out of obligation. So we walked out into the hallway, and he went first, and I was coming up behind him, and I didn't want him to think I was rushing him. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not following you. And he turned around and he said, you know, every time I meet a pretty woman, she follows me. And so I laughed so hard, By the time I got to my mother's, I realized he changed my whole attitude. I had been giveful. I had recognized him. I had greeted him. But he gave me back three things. He saw me and what I was doing for my mother. He made me laugh, and he called me pretty. Isn't that a great example of where a small act of kindness brings back a boatload of gifts? So, I mean, that's what's cool about being giveful, is you don't have to put your name on a building. You don't have to write a check for $1 million. It is a small movement or a big movement, depending on where you are in life and what you want to get done.
That is so inspiring. And to me, it just rings of a connection to empathy, understanding, being seen. What would you say to the leaders that are listening who are trying to cultivate that kind of culture? Like, they have the language, right? But they still may be struggling internally to get to a place where the women in their organization actually feel seen and valued in that way.
So empathy and compassion are human superpowers. We're the only ones that have empathy and compassion. And, you know, if I had superpowers, if anybody had we'd use them every day, right? So how do we elevate those in the corporate world? How do we get women to see that those are as important as our MBA or our ability to speak or our ability to sell a deal, close a deal? Empathy and compassion go a long way to connecting us to all there is around us, all the gifts that are there for us when we need them.
Absolutely. And sometimes that empathy and compassion, back to what you were saying, is something that we need to mirror for ourselves more than we do, especially as women. How do you do that? Like, what is the mindset shift that's required for women to step more into that space of being open to receiving so that they can give?
So I've tried to do a good bit of research. There is a lot of medical research that talks about people that are giveful are healthier. And so really Harvard's done studies. I mean, there's a plethora of information out there that people who give and receive on a regular basis have a longer life. They have a lower blood pressure. They sleep better. In fact, people who are giveful are more attractive to the opposite sex. They also tend to have a higher self-esteem. People that are giveful tend to be happier because they got a sense of purpose. So when you start to take this little action of giving and receiving, bringing your full gifts, and then being open to what the world wants, and you can equate it to better physical and better mental health, it's worth trying. But it doesn't stop there, because I have come to find out that regardless of what religion you pursue, what God you choose to worship, or whether you just call yourself spiritual, there's also tons of data that being giveful brings you closer to that higher power. So here's an activity that could make you healthier, happier, and more spiritually grounded, and it costs nothing, and you can do it anywhere, anytime, all by yourself or with a group of people.
Sign me up for that.
Oh, well, you live it. You're kind of a role model.
Well, no, you definitely are the trailblazer here. And what would you say to the woman that, similar maybe in your shoes? Do you ever, well, let me ask you this question specifically. Do you ever have a sense of, when it comes to receiving, that because you've accomplished so much, because you have everything that you need, that you don't need what's being gifted to you, and perhaps like, oh, you have that thought, there's someone else that needs this more than I do, like I don't need it? How do you kind of work through those thoughts? Hey Thriver, I'm excited for you to get your hands on your copy of the Blueprint to More Visibility and Influence. This is a powerful free resource that's designed to catapult your influence and amplify your impact in your business or company. Now, this isn't just another online guide. This is your strategic companion that's going to walk you through the world of personal branding and authentic leadership. Inside, you'll unlock essential strategies that are going to help you do a few things. One, sharpen your self-awareness and own your unique story, navigate the complexities of workplace dynamics with more confidence, elevate your presence in any room, and ensure that you are not only seen, but also heard and valued. Why wait for opportunities when you can create them. With this blueprint, you'll learn how to cultivate a personal brand that commands respect and opens the door for new opportunities. And the best part, you'll start seeing the world differently, not just as a place where you fit in, but one where you stand out. You'll transform your self-doubt into more self-assurance and turn your aspirations into tangible achievements. So join me in our community of thrivers who are making their mark. Don't let this moment pass you by. Head on over to let'sthrivetogether.com to download your free copy of the blueprint to more visibility and influence today. Start your journey and let's thrive together.
So, we probably are all guilty of doing that with compliments. We get compliments and we say, someone will say, wow, did you lose weight? And I'll say, oh no, this is just, new Spanx or whatever. So compliments are a really funny thing. They are a gift that someone gives to us, and women tend to deflect them. And I am trying, and I think we should all try to really receiving, because what I'm learning is the person who's given the compliment really needs a compliment. And I think we frequently give what it is we want back. So we give love because we want love. We give admiration because we want admiration. We give a hug because we want a hug. Again, I think being giveful is a selfish action, because it is about taking care of yourself. It's like a cocktail of self-care. And we just don't think of it that way.
Yeah. How has that cocktail of self-care with being giveful helped you to navigate life when it feels really busy, when you feel like you've got more happening than schedule availability?
So your body physically responds when you totally are giveful. So when you fulfill that circle, when you give and receive, you get a adrenaline hit, you get oxytocin in your body, you get a feeling of almost like a helper's high. So sometimes, like that elevator story, when you're overwhelmed, stop and go do something for someone else. And it sort of resets your framework and gives you a boost. It gives you a break. It kind of elevates your spirit or your soul. So I use it, I like to come home and have a glass of Chardonnay, but in the middle of the day, I can't do that. So a little giveful act can give me that boost.
How do you see this movement, is how I see it, of being giveful really impacting the next generation of leaders, and what would be your advice to them?
So I am so hopeful. This is kind of a crazy idea that I want to take being giveful and make it a wellness practice. So think yoga, think meditation, think sleep, think dieting, all those things. Now, my mother, I mentioned her earlier, she started doing Jack LaLanne exercises about 65 years ago. She drives me crazy because every day she does 30 minutes on the floor of Jack. I do not do this, right? But it has completely kept my mother as healthy as she is. She fell the other day, and I was like, oh my God, Mom, are you all right? What happened? What did you do? And she said, well, honey, I got up. It's like 96 years of age. I got up. So how do we take this being giveful and make people that serious about it, that they make it a practice and then they do it for the next 45 or 50 years? So I guess I think by really promoting the benefits and teaching or helping people feel it, because I think it is addictive. I think once you are giveful and practice the acts a few times, little or big, and you get that rush of feeling back, the emotion back, the gifts back, I think you want to do it more. And then you want to do it more. And so somehow getting people to realize it is a very selfish, addictive behavior that makes you a better person and makes the world a better place. And it's also very contagious.
It is very contagious. And we're sitting with a live studio audience today. So I want to invite some questions. I want to invite the audience in to engage on this conversation. So what questions are there in the room on this topic? Any questions from the audience? And as the microphone is going around, what's your big vision? You mentioned yoga, but what are some practical ways in terms of how you're looking forward to expanding this idea of being giveful as a wellness practice?
So there are a couple thoughts. Number one, there are people out there that have a very big platform, that have a lot of followers, that this message fits with their brand, This message of being Giveful as a wellness practice isn't probably going to get launched by someone like me, but if it got picked up by someone like Reese Witherspoon or other folks like Oprah, if someone really looked at this as an additive to their brand, I think they could elevate it. And I really care mostly about growing giving and growing giftfuls. So I don't know that I care that I own the idea. The second fantasy I have is, anybody have the Calm app, the meditation app on your phone? So it started with meditation and then they went to sleep and now they're doing music. So what if the next vertical was Giveful and we started to log our daily givings and log our gifts? There's no better way to go to sleep at night but to lay there and think, how many times was I Giveful? And then start to count your blessings, your gifts, and fall asleep. It's wonderful. So I wanted to go somewhere, and I'm either going to be on the app or I'm going to be on Oprah.
I love it.
Who knows?
I love it. I love it. I want to hear from you as we wrap up. What does thriving mean to you?
So I think thriving is feeling like I am fully present, fully engaged, and fully being used in this life to make my existence in the world a better place. So, I really liked what that preacher said. I think when we're working on all fronts, we are totally using our gifts. Mm-hmm. And there's only one Brittany and there's only one Pat Shea. So, why not show up and be everything we can be? So when I am in a funk or when I'm not feeling valuable, create those Giveful moments, because that is making yourself really valuable to the world. So I think that's thriving for me, when I feel like I'm really charging on all fronts and using everything I have.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Pat, for being on the show.
I love it. Thank you.